because they all kind of come from this kind of like almost this recipe of how to make the perfect conspiracy theory.
Why are we drawn to conspiracy theories?
I think it can all be trickled down to us trying to make sense of a really complex world that we live in. And conspiracies typically arise when that complication's really ramped up. So it could be during a moment of crisis, which could be personal, something in your own life, or it could be societal. So, a virus outbreak, political change, something that really kind of frustrates some of the needs that we have. And in those moments, we seek answers, we seek certainty, we want to know what is going on. And a conspiracy theory can often offer a simple explanation for what that complex kind of crisis is kind of happening in front of us.
The idea that they make sense of a complex world, but the conspiracy theories that at least I'm aware of, like, that doesn't make any sense. It always seems like, yeah, you're simplifying something, but the conspiracy theory is far more complex than the actual thing that's happening. The idea that kind of, no, the person that I voted for isn't lying to me. The real truth is it's a deep state and the president's been cloned. Like,
it offers that certainty in the sense of it feels way more, in essence, you could hold on to it and go, wow, look, okay, this is what's happening behind the scenes. Whereas typically the official explanation often isn't as interesting, often isn't as entertaining, often doesn't kind of tickle the needs that we have when we want to understand what is happening in a particular issue. And indeed, the conspiracy can point the finger. That's what makes it simpler, in the sense that it can point the finger at a group that typically you don't like, or a group that you don't find trustworthy. It is also that kind of intergroup phenomenon where it's us versus them.
Are there certain aspects of a conspiracy theory that will really make it stick? Like if it has this, this, and this, so to speak, that's really going to catch hold.
So conspiracy theories can be kind of complicated to kind of get right. I bet if you were to look at the internet, there's probably thousands of different types of theories that are out there, but only some of them really kind of tickle people's fancies, really kind of address some of those needs. In a way, it really has to have a clear group. That group has to be perceived to be threatening and perceived to be powerful. So it cannot be, for example, me or teenagers. It has to be the government. Has to be, scientists, has to be a tangible group. And they have to, do something that kind of makes sense for that group, to plot and scheme, to cover up different facts about vaccination, for example. And then the motive has to, again, make sense. It can't just be, for fun, for whatever reason. It has to be, for usually self-interest, for profit, for control. So therefore, you could suggest, that scientists cover up the facts about vaccination for profit. Suddenly, that's a conspiracy theory that can make sense. If you swap out one of the ingredients and suddenly you say teenagers are covering up vaccination for profit, that doesn't make sense. That's what makes me think about popular conspiracy theories, is that they really got those ingredients in hand. And actually, you can map these ingredients back to all different types of conspiracy theories. I don't think there's anything unique about climate change, vaccination, intergroup conspiracies, because they all kind of come from this kind of like almost this recipe of how to make the perfect conspiracy theory.
That's what I don't think I'm going to ask this question very well, but hopefully it kind of makes sense. Are conspiracy theories the symptom or the disease, in the sense that, let's say, I believe in chemtrails. Is it really just about chemtrails, or is it about the idea that I don't trust the government? Does belief in a conspiracy theory symbolize a broader belief in everything else?
Yes, it's a symptom, in the sense of people will be drawn in by certain types of conspiracy theories. I'll say that is true. But it really does kind of grapple with one's worldview. In essence, the lens that someone perceives the world to be in. So if you see the world full of conspiracies, you will likely see conspiracies wherever you kind of look. If conspiracies exist in climate change, well, they probably exist in vaccination, political change, virus outbreaks. They all really kind of hang together because, it's kind of difficult to imagine a time where, let's say, you distrust the government, but you think, oh, actually, I distrust them in climate change, but not in vaccination. Like, it probably kind of really hangs together that if that distrust is there and that cynicism is there about that one issue, it's going to bleed in to hold other things.
Is this the kind of thing that only happens to certain people, or can everybody kind of get into this?
So there's not a profile of who's more likely to believe in a conspiracy theory, or rather, who is a conspiracy theorist. I often think that actually, in the right circumstance, anyone could be drawn into a conspiracy theory. Because in a way, when you may have the skill sets to kind of evaluate and to criticize, but when you are feeling anxious and threatened and your self-image is frustrated, it can be difficult to try and think clearly through the skill sets that may have been taught at school, for example. So we know that if you're discriminated against, you're more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. Probably because you have actually been at the brunt of a conspiracy against you and your group. And as such, it makes you see the world through this conspiratorial lens. It can also, of course, be, down to our personality. There are some studies that have shown that if you're more narcissistic, you potentially are more conspiratorial. And that's probably because you have a real desire to have a positive image of yourself and your group. So as such, you're really leaning into the idea that the other group are doing bad things.
Does it tie to intelligence in any way?
So there is work demonstrating that those who typically have who have less education, shall we say, so less likely to have gone to university, are slightly more conspiratorial. But it can also be, as I mentioned, the most intelligent also still being conspiratorial. I think it definitely is a safeguard because it gives you, i.e., education, obviously gives you skill sets to be able to navigate the world. And of course, the world's even more complex than it was before with the internet and all manner of information that we're exposed to. But I don't feel it's a silver bullet whereby that if you're feeling anxious, you can suddenly use these skill sets. Potentially, it's a mixture of being able to have the skills, maybe through education or through other means, but also be able to maybe regulate your emotions, kind of deal with that moment of crisis in that moment, then be able to use your skill sets. So as I say, whilst evidence will suggest that education absolutely plays a role, I personally think it's more complicated than that. And that could explain why you do get a variety of different people believing in conspiracies.